so I just got the quotes, and I'm going to be choosing the Bruce Feiler one, and I'd like to start my prep time now. Okay, I'd like to stop it. So I think that was about 13 seconds, I want to say. Gotta straighten this out, sorry. Okay. And let's begin. So a couple of years ago, my friends and I, there's a group of about 8 of us, were hanging out at Southland Park, which is our usual spot. And instead of playing our usual games, basketball, football, maybe some soccer thrown in there, we decided to just strip it down to the most bare bones competition there is. Just a straight up race right across the football field. And to my surprise and to the surprise of everybody around me, I actually won. So this allowed all of my friends who were on the lacrosse team to convince me of my incredible athleticism and how I should join the lacrosse team, which had won the state championship the year before. And I did. And lo and behold, I was absolutely terrible at lacrosse. I couldn't catch, I couldn't throw, I didn't understand what was going on half the time. And what this showed to me was that going fast isn't necessarily everything in life. And I think that this is what Bruce Feiler was also trying to get at when he advised you to take a walk with a turtle and to behold the world in pause. And I'll be discussing how in 2 instances, in addition to my lacrosse fiasco, that would actually be an incredible piece of advice. However, I'll be discussing as well a 3rd instance in which we maybe shouldn't take Feiler's advice as the gospel. So for starters, let's discuss something that seemingly everybody in the at least sphere of the internet that I'm a part of cannot seem to shut up about. About 2 weeks ago, Fiona Apple released her new album, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, and all of liberal and indie Twitter has gone completely nuts over it, myself included. I absolutely love this album, and I'm not the only one. Pitchfork gave it their first 10 out of 10 rating in 10 years. Critics and fans alike have absolutely adored this album, but one thing that tends to go unnoticed in discussions of Fetch the Bolt Cutters is the fact that it was album's first release in 8 years. What this means is that Fiona Apple was able to put together 8 years worth of patience, dedication, and hard work into this one fantastic project. And her patience, dedication, and slow pace has paid incredible dividends. If, for example, she were releasing an album every 2 or 3 years, then often the production, lyrics, or instrumentation might be rushed, and as a result she wouldn't be able to have as much of an incredible ability to convey the messages that she's trying to convey as in Fetch the Bolt Cutters. But instead, she was patient. She took the production of this album at the pace of a turtle and was able to use that slow pace and that incredible dedication to what she was trying to create artistically to create a fantastic project that myself, other fans, and critics alike have all seemed to be able to get behind. What this proves is that Feiler's quote holds true in the case of Fetch the Bolt Cutters, because her patience and her slow pace was able to pay such incredible dividends. Now, we can also discuss this in the world of sports, in which general manager Sam Hinkie of the Philadelphia 76ers spent years and years and years languishing with an absolutely terrible franchise in Philadelphia. Starting in 2013, they started to intentionally lose games, and in 2014, they won only 11 games in an 82-game season. This was incredibly difficult, and these years and years of losing games took a toll on both the players and fans in Philadelphia, and eventually Sam Hinkie wound up getting fired. However, now, the Philadelphia 76ers find themselves at a place where they are staring down a potential Eastern Conference championship, finals bid, and maybe even an NBA Finals victory. How did this happen? Well, it's because the Philadelphia 76ers were intentionally losing games so that they would be able to get a high draft pick. And since then, they have parlayed those high draft picks into players like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who've been able to put together an incredible roster in Philadelphia that makes them capable of winning games at a much higher clip than they would have been otherwise. What this means is that the years and years of losing games under Sam Hinkie actually paid incredible dividends, because they were able to use those lost years to create a much better future for the team. Because of this slow pace and years of losing and all of this languaging for years and years, they were able actually to parlay this patience into something that they are seeing great successes in now. And as a result, we can see that Filer's quote again holds true in the case of the 76ers. Now, finally, I'd like to discuss one third instance in which Filer's quote may not necessarily want to be taken as the gospel, and this is the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s in the United States. See, many people, particularly in the South, oppose civil rights under the notion that we can't just rush into something. However, this proved to be completely untrue. John F. Kennedy, back in the early 1960s, actually held true to this ideal and passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which did essentially nothing. There was still rampant segregation and racial hostilities, again particularly in the South, and as a result it took radical and decisive action on the part of Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968 to pass the second Civil Rights Act. What this demonstrates is that the slow and steady approach that many people took in the 1950s and 60s towards desegregation and towards the civil rights movement was actually something that was completely ineffective in delivering the goals that the people supposedly wanted to have happen. Instead, it took quick and decisive action on the part of Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968 to actually provide an integrated future for the United States. So Bruce Feiler advised that we ought to walk with a turtle and behold the world in pause. And though I think that this is often great advice, it may not be something that we need to take as the gospel. For starters, Fiona Apple's album was extremely successful because she was able to put together 8 years worth of patience and dedication into creating a grand artistic project. Then the Philadelphia 76ers spent years and years losing games, but they were able to put it together now with those good draft picks and put themselves in position to potentially win an NBA championship. However, in spite of those good examples, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 proves that the slow and steady approach may not always be perfect. And as a result, we may need to take Bruce Feiler's quote in pause as well. Thank you.
And that speech was about 6:34 on my part.